So on that note, I'm going to bring in Matt Stroud, as I mentioned, by Bernie. Matt is the creator and the narrator of the Guru podcast. So again, this is one of those things that sort of helps illuminate what happened at the Spiritual Warrior event in 2009. And Matt actually has been kind of following this story for about 7 years now or so. He wrote a piece for The Verge, a long-form piece of journalism, which was one of the best pieces of reporting about Spiritual Warrior, pretty much up until he then created the podcast Guru, which maybe surpasses your article, sorry, but it's even a little more detailed. So we're really happy to have you here tonight, Matt. We really appreciate all the work that you've done and your willingness to continue to speak with us and help us. So I'm curious, why have you taken such an interest in this story over the years?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me and for being so open with me. I've mentioned before that Ginny has been one of the best sources on this story, and has been open for pretty much all of those 7 years that I've been looking at it. I got into the story initially, not to go into too much detail, but I used to cover wrongful convictions. So I worked for an organization that got letters from prisoners who claimed that they were innocent of their crimes, and I would then go in and investigate and hone in on cases where people actually seemed to be innocent. And one of the most interesting parts of that work was seeing the cases where somebody would be released from prison and then watching their reintegration into society. And I actually came to the James Ray story from that angle. I knew he was getting out of prison in 2013, right? Mm-hmm. And I was curious what his life and his work was going to look like afterwards. The Sedona Sweat Lodge tragedy was in the past, and so we could look at it and try to analyze it, but I really wanted to know what he was going to do with his life. And I expected it to be kind of a straightforward profile of a man who's re-emerging into society. And I thought he was going to be very agreeable and he would be willing to talk. And then I found out very quickly that he was not going to be that. And it turned into a much more complicated and interesting story than I thought it was going to be, and a lot sadder of a story and more rage inducing story than I thought it was going to be. And so because of that, because of the complexities of it, and because of people like the folks in your family and the other victims and their families in the story, I've just been, it seems like a story that needs to be told and that seems to always have updates to bring people up to speed on. So I just kept on it and kept reporting it.
Yeah, it is an interesting story that does continually sort of evolve, it seems. I'm wondering too, what have you sort of gleaned or come to understand about the self-help industry as a wider industry than just the incident with James Ray?
I knew almost nothing about self-help when I started looking into James. And one of the things that surprised me most initially and continues to surprise me to this day is the lack of legislation and accreditation that's involved in someone being able to say that they're a life coach or that they're in the self-help industry. And that leaves a lot of wiggle room for shysters to be able to claim that they have a product or a personality or experiences that might be valuable to the tune of thousands and thousands of dollars, without any kind of accreditation to their name. And so that adds to the complexity of the story. It adds to my concern around the industry. And part of the reason why I've been so interested in what Seek Safely has done is because that's something that Ginny, that you all are seeking to change or at least bring some light to. That's been most interesting to me about the self-help industry.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really hit us after Kirby's death, was just as the more and more we dug into the industry, it was sort of more and more unbelievable, realizing kind of the things that were going on. And it was, I think one of the things we've always appreciated about your reporting is that, in spite of the fact that there were a lot of details of Spiritual Warrior that felt very sort of sensational, you managed to cover it in such a way that it almost made our job easier, of sort of presenting to people why everyone needs to be concerned about this issue, because we're all consuming self-help in different ways, especially with social media and all of the information that we have. And you really humanized the participants and made them not look like sort of, people that who were gullible or, stupid or something like that. Which obviously we knew that wasn't the case, but getting other people to understand that felt like a big ask in the beginning. So that's definitely something we've always appreciated.
It's extremely important, and I understand that when an event that's as sensational as the Sedona Sweat Lodge tragedy occurs, you're going to have media organizations all over the world who are looking to cover this, and all they get is the sensationalism. And I empathize with the reporters who are in that situation, because I've been there. I reported for the Associated Press, and there were several stories where I was just flown into an area, and you report on what's going on at this moment, and it can make the people who are there kind of look like they're out in left field somewhere. So going back and revisiting, this particular story and being able to show that these are, smart people and they were dragged into this basically, is important, and I appreciate that you see that.
Yeah. So what was it like? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add how I've appreciated how Matt has covered this, because it was such a big story in the media. I interfaced with an awful lot of different journalists, and I understood that they had to answer to a producer, and that most of the time they were just doing their job. But it's often been painful. You can give an interview, a 5-hour interview. I mean, I've had people here in my home, and I've fed them and helped them out, and then the article never appears, or nothing ever shows up on TV, or you just get kind of blown off, and they're just doing their job. I get that, but this is my heart, and such an important. This isn't just a story to me. This is my life. So I feel like you've always gotten that, Matt. So I've always appreciated that about the way you've been able to report on what happened, and also about Seek and the organization.
Well, it's been a luxury having somebody like you as a source, because you are so giving with that story, and about sharing everything that's meaningful to you about this. And also, just the fact that you've given the story, as I assume that you would, so much thought, and you're so thoughtful about what occurred. And that's rare in a source. Often you have sources who are not as thoughtful as you have been. And so it's really been a luxury on my part.
Thank you. What was it like for you putting Guru together?
It's reporting. It's my job. It's what I do. Guru, we've discussed this before, and because of the factors that Jean, you mentioned, a lot of people are very hesitant to talk to a reporter. And so diving back into the story, I felt like I was beginning my reporting all over again. Because a lot of the folks who were involved, they've been through this for a long time. I'm coming back from, by the time that we were initially working on Guru, it had been 10 years.
Right.
So I'm contacting all of these folks and saying, hey, we're kind of doing a retrospective on the story and updating it and giving new details about what has transpired in the years since it actually happened. And most of them just wanted nothing to do with it. They did not want to reopen these doors. They did not
Mhm.
want to look at this part of their life again, or think about it
Mhm.
anymore.
Mhm.
And so it was at the beginning as challenging as any reporting project I've ever been involved with.
Mhm.
There were times when I have to travel across the country to go knock on someone's door because they weren't responding to emails or calls. Um,
Mhm.
and a lot of those people had very good reasons for not wanting to talk to me.
Mhm.
So it was, again, very important for me in the end product to make sure that I tried to humanize everyone as much as possible and to show that there really were reasons for them to have been a part of this tragedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, I think, in a way, I know you're doing your job as a reporter, but it helps our mission when, we have these examples of reporting that does show sort of a balanced and measured way of telling the story. Because, as Jenny was talking about before, it's really important for people to be open about the experiences that they've had with this industry, but people are very reluctant to do that. So again, that's something that we've been pushing Guru since it came out.
Thank you.
But yeah, because we really think it's an important piece of making people understand, what the dangers are in this industry and why people should feel comfortable sort of telling their story
Mhm.
and more open about these experiences. So you got some love there on Facebook as well.
Mhm.
So thank you very much, Matt. We're really, really grateful that you were able to join us tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And thank you, Carol, in the comments.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thanks,
All right.
Carol. Glad you've joined us.
All right. Well, thanks, Matt. We'll talk to you soon, I'm sure. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good luck.
All right. Thanks.
And if anyone hasn't listened to this podcast series, it is definitely worth listening to. Matt does a wonderful job really pulling a lot of very important facts together in a way that's, you really can listen to and kind of grasp really what happened to the folks that were in Sedona,
Yeah, for sure.
and the tragedy that they suffered.
Yeah.